Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Hitting the Hardwood podcast, your home for all the latest Minnesota Lynx and WNBA news, analysis, and coverage. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. I'm your host, Mitchell Hansen. And I think I say this every time we open up a podcast, but this season has flown by so dang fast. We have, as I'm recording this podcast, we're in between the third and fourth games against the Liberty for the Minnesota Lynx, and the Minnesota Lynx have 11 games left in the regular season, which is kind of hard to imagine and realize because it feels like the season just started. But we're officially in the home stretch of the regular season, not just for the Minnesota Lynx, but for the league in general. And it's one of my favorite times of the year. Playoff picture starts to heat up as it is already, but it really starts to heat up here over the next couple of weeks, and we start looking ahead to the postseason, and that's the all-time best. My favorite time of the year is postseason basketball and playoff basketball. It's unmatched and it's unlike any other. So it's almost here. It will be here before we know it. And it always seems to fly by. The regular season does in a blink of an eye. But it's been a fun season so far. Especially if you are a Minnesota Lynx fan, because the Minnesota Lynx just continue to dominate. They only seem to be getting stronger as the year goes along, and they will get stronger once Napheesa Collier comes back from her ankle injury that she is currently close to returning from. But once she does return, entering into this home stretch of the regular season, Minnesota is going to be an even more dangerous team. And that says a lot for a team that's has the second best regular season start over 33 games in WNBA history. So it's going to be a very interesting, maybe not for the Minnesota Lynx, but for kind of the rest of the WNBA and the different seeding that will be taking place, or kind of the shifting of seeds that will be taking place over these last dozen games or whatever it may be for the rest of the teams in the league. But that's the thing everybody will have their eyes on here over the final stretch of the regular season. But speaking of the Lynx, I kind of mentioned it a little bit ago. In between the third and fourth game against the Liberty. The fourth and final regular season game between the Lynx and Liberty will be August 19th. And it's been basically all Minnesota so far. They've all been very back and forth games. They've been very close games, but Minnesota has stepped up when it's mattered most, and stepped up late. And that's been the key differentiator. It's been kind of unfortunate that the matchups have been without Breanna Stewart and, for the most part, Napheesa Collier, two obviously star players for each team. But I mean, injuries happen. They take place for every team, and that's just kind of how the cards have been dealt for both teams. But talking Lynx and Liberty, I'm very, very excited to be joined once again. He's been on this podcast once before. I believe I think it's just been once or one other time. But a guy that I've gotten to know better over the years, a guy who I work with at Winsidr, and somebody who does just a phenomenal job, not only covering the New York Liberty, but the WNBA in general. He's a great advocate for the game, does a great job of promoting the game. And he's just an overall good dude. And that is my buddy Myles Ehrlich. And him and I will break down and kind of dive into the Lynx and Liberty matchups. We'll talk a little bit about what's different from last year. And I know that's kind of a sore subject for a lot of Lynx fans, and maybe a happy subject for Liberty fans who may be listening. But Myles is awesome. Myles, I love talking basketball with Myles. But we'll talk Lynx Liberty, and we will also talk the rest of the WNBA now that we're getting there in the regular season and inching close to the postseason. But before we jump into that, I want to just mention our Patreon page. If you could go check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/hitting the hardwood. That's where you'll get exclusive content and news. You'll get all of the written work of myself, Terry Horseman, and Andrew Dukowitz, as well as early access to podcasts. You'll get newsletters, et cetera, et cetera. But just for a small amount each month, you support the work of all of us at Hitting the Hardwood, myself, Terry, and Andrew, as I mentioned. and you kind of ensure the longevity of this. And we enjoy covering the game. We think you deserve it. I know Andrew and Terry have talked about this on their respective podcasts as well. You guys deserve this. Especially Lynx fans, you deserve to have these podcasts. You deserve to have this coverage. You deserve to have this content. And we want to continue to do that for you guys, as well as WNBA fans and stretching far beyond Lynx fans. But you guys deserve it. You deserve this game deserves the same coverage that other leagues get. And we're working our tails off to be able to bring that to you guys, and supporting us via the Patreon page. It just helps us out. It makes it, we don't do it for the money. I mean, as you've heard from a lot of other people, you're not breaking the bank by being a beat writer or covering the WNBA, unfortunately. But it's something we enjoy doing and we want to do and we do outside of our full-time jobs. And anything you can do to support us to just ensure that we can continue to keep doing this, every little bit helps. But please check out patreon.com/hitting the hardwood, and that's a good way to do so. But now that I'm done rambling, let's jump into the podcast with Myles Ehrlich.
Miles, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Middle of a chaotic W season, but
Yeah,
this has been a fun one.
yeah.
Start to finish.
We were kind of talking about it before we got onto the recording that there's just something about this season that is kind of it's I mean it's a busier season. It's more condensed, as you kind of mentioned to me off of the recording, but it's been kind of a hectic season. You kind of feeling the what we're at like the 10 mark of games left for a lot of teams.
Yeah, and then it always feels like every year this is the stretch that speeds by, and then we get right into the playoffs.
Yeah.
And this is like in baseball, they've got like the dog days of August. The W has that too.
Oh yeah.
So I feel like I'm just at this point hoping that we're at the window where all of these teams, then we're going to talk about Lynx and Liberty, but all the
Mhm.
teams that have injured players like have this runway to start integrating them back into the lineups, and that we can hopefully just have a healthy stretch for the postseason because it's such a fierce competitive league right now. Obviously, Lynx are running away with it in the standings, but just like that next tier, everyone has really upped their games this year.
Mhm.
So I want everyone just healthy for the postseason.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see, I mean, this is every season, but who not only gets healthy, but who gets hot at the end of the year. I
Mhm.
mean, we're looking at Las Vegas, who's on a tear right now. I mean, that's kind of opposite of what they started the season at, but this is the time to turn things around, and if you're in the hunt, anything can happen at this point if you can put it together. But
Yeah.
um,
Can I actually start this interview by asking you a question?
yes, you absolutely can.
Just on the heels of the Vegas talk, because they are so hot and because Asia is just doing everything right now.
Yeah.
Where are you at with the MVP race? Because the longer Fee misses, the more open it feels.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that just off of Asia's performance. The day before we're recording this podcast, she dropped what 34 points or whatever it was. I mean, she is absolutely on a tear. I thought, when we are sitting at maybe All-Star break or midway, maybe even just a couple weeks ago, I thought Fee had a solid chance of being potentially close to unanimous because she just seemed like the odds-on, the clear front runner. But now, I mean, I still think Fee is the favorite. I think Asia would have to kind of continue this the rest of the regular season and she very well could, but to
And then
to kind of
AT's got five triple doubles.
well, right, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely closer now than what it was. But I do still think, and maybe it's a little biased just because I've watched more of Fee, but I do think that she's still the front runner. But what do you kind of think?
It's hard because there are all the stats that float around about like nobody has ever missed more than 5 games
Hmm.
and won, but also this is the longest season the W's ever had, so I think it's got to be a percentage thing. At the same time, there's 44 games, but AT missed a few games. I know Asia missed a few games. Fee did too. It's hard. If everything ended today, I would still have Fee,
Hmm.
and I think Fee, AT, and Asia would be my order right now. But if Alyssa Thomas keeps putting up triple doubles, and if Asia keeps putting up 30 bombs, and she put up the 30 and 20 last week too,
Hmm.
and if either of those teams end up as that distant but still second place team, because that 2, 3, 4 right now between the Liberty and also the five, right? Between the Liberty and Phoenix and Atlanta and
Hmm.
Vegas, like that can shake out in any direction based on where they started. Like the season being so long means that like you have more chance for this momentum to shift. And it also depends on, I know that she was on the injury report as doubtful last game, but how quickly we
Hmm.
see feedback. And I think it was a lucky streak of the schedule to have that week off
Yeah,
also.
I agree.
Uh, but yeah, I know that there's just like there can be something said about how well Minnesota has also played without her. But I don't think that them being dominant, regardless, should be a knock against Fee. It's just anything that should help Cheryl more with the Coach of the Year vote when it comes to
Yeah.
that.
I was, now that you said that, I was actually just thinking about it because I go back and forth with the MVP award because what is it? It's the most valuable player. And when
Hmm.
you're looking now, all these players are the most valuable player on their team, but you look at each team and who is the most valuable to their team. You could argue that Asia Wilson's the most valuable to Las Vegas right now. If you take her out of the
Hmm.
lineup, maybe they're definitely not as good, but when you look at Minnesota without Fee, like they've just almost been able to just kind of keep rolling and not even skip a beat. But I don't know. It's kind of the best player, most valuable player argument that, which one do you really give the MVP award to? And I don't know. I do think Fee's going to end up winning it. I think the dominance of Minnesota to this point is kind of, I think that feeds into it a little bit. But I don't know. It's getting tighter by the game. Fee needs to get back onto the floor and just for a multitude of reasons. But if she wants to keep that MVP
Hmm.
hope alive, she's got to get back, which I do think she's close. I mean, she's out of her boot now. She
That's
was moving
good.
around. I know Cheryl said this past week before the third Liberty game that she's running around and she's on track. So I would anticipate she's probably not going to play in this fourth game against the Liberty, but she'll hopefully be back here. I would say maybe another week, which is about on track to what they were talking about of reevaluating her in a couple weeks. So
How
um,
long is the electric slide to game action delay usually? Because now that she's out there for that, it feels like she's got to be close.
yeah, she was out there dancing. So I mean, I don't know. That maybe that's part of the rehab. That's another box that they have to check off once she gets out there and dances on the floor post game, then she's good. But no, and I know that a lot of people were freaking out with the boot too, but that's a common
Precaution.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just it helps with everything. It
Hmm.
maybe looks worse than what it maybe is, but yeah, I think I don't really think there's going to be any delay, beyond what they initially had envisioned that she'd be out. But I mean, yes, I know that it's in the back of their mind. They want to get her the MVP award. I know that that's something that they want to get her back on the floor to be able to get. But also, there's no rush either. I mean, the
Hmm.
Lynx have a playoff seed wrapped up or a playoff spot wrapped up. Yes, the number one seed is something they want to get, but there's no need in rushing her back by any means because it goes far beyond this regular season too.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're 7 games up. So
Right.
they all but have the number one overall. And like, I know there's the magic numbers of it all, but also
Hmm.
if you just look at who everybody else has to play, they
Right.
might have basically already tied that up.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so too.
Do you want to get your business in front of a passionate and dedicated fan base? Do you want to support the ever-growing landscape of women's sports? Hitting the Hardwood Network is here for you. We offer partnerships and sponsorships at various levels, including advertising on the Hitting the Hardwood and Lynx Happy Hour podcast, the Hitting the Hardwood newsletter, Patreon page, website, social media, and much more. If you want to partner or sponsor Hitting the Hardwood, please reach out to us at hittingthehardwood@gmail.com and let's chat about how we can work together to support the ever-growing landscape of women's sports and help the game grow. I want to give a shout out to our current partners here at Hitting the Hardwood and those who help make Hitting the Hardwood happen. Thank you to Pentz Homes, Fantasy Sports Evo, Homage, and Better Edge for your continued partnership and your continued support of Hitting the Hardwood and Lynx Happy Hour and your willingness to help make the game grow.
Speaking of the W, just kind of the layout. What is we already kind of talked a little bit about Vegas, but what have you thought about what we've seen, this season and specifically over the last couple weeks with the standings and just kind of each team throughout the league?
Yeah, I feel like because of the way the season's broken down, I've fallen in love with different teams over
Hmm.
different iterations of teams over different parts of the season. At the beginning, the Atlanta Dream were the first team that really stood out to me because
Yeah.
it was just how was Smesco Ball going to play
Hmm.
and how were BG and Breezy going to fit into those lineups and get out on the perimeter. And the player that has excelled the most in that new system outside of Alicia Gray, who is having rightfully in the first team all W conversations. But what I've seen from Naz Hillman this year, it's been one of my favorite developments and one of my favorite storylines. And then the next team that came along was the Phoenix Mercury and
Hmm.
everyone that they were putting in and out of the lineup and how even down one of the stars that they added in Satu for large portions of the year, or Ka working her way back, how they were able to get all these just some undrafted players, some veterans, and just put these lineups together and just go out there and win game after game. And then the Valkyries, the Golden State Valkyries, who have now broken or set the all-time record for the most wins from an expansion franchise being
Hmm.
added to the W. And the fact that they're over 500, and it's not just that, like the first couple of games it was like this is fun, they're competing and they're playing hard, but they really turn that into just that is the whole identity. And I've talked to a bunch of those players about just like what it meant to them to be chosen in that expansion draft. Like these were all players that were mostly role players in the teams they'd been on previously, and the amount of faith that was put into them was really something that they were all able to bond with from day one. And they've been so much fun. And talking about Nas as being one of my favorite stories of the year, Veronica Burton and what
Hmm.
VB has done there. And she put up a 30 bomb last week for them
Yeah.
too. It's just really outstanding. And obviously, she's out now, but Kayla Thornton making the All-Star team there
Hmm.
and being just the representative, the first ever one for that Valkyries franchise at the All-Star game was really cool to see. So there's just been so much outside of, last year, I feel like by the time we got to the finals, it was like this predestined Lynx Liberty matchup. And now this year, it just feels like there's so much to love up and
Hmm.
down the standings.
Yeah, I kind of going back to Golden State too. It's if you'd have told, I think any of us that they would, be around well, they're in seventh place right now, but around that 6, 7, 8 mark. I don't know if anybody would have told you that they're, that would have been an outcome.
Mhm.
I think a lot of people just thought it was a foregone conclusion they'd be a bottom, four team in the league or five team or whatever, and not make the playoffs. But they're, despite their injuries, despite, kind of players going in and out of that lineup, they've been able to maneuver that well and kind of be a surprise. So
Yeah.
it's
And
great to see.
Eurobasket too. Yeah, they
Yeah.
got hit hard by that too and lost a
Yep.
lot of players because they have so much international talent, but they've
Mhm.
really just kept it going.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely, which is awesome to see. Hopefully, we have that with the future expansion teams too, and just continue
Yeah.
the knowing the talent that is out there. I think we'll be all right.
Bar's been set high.
Yeah, absolutely. When it kind of looking at these last it's basically 9 to 11 games for a lot of the teams. Is there anybody that you're really looking at or kind of intrigued to see how they finish out the rest of this season and if they're able to move up or down in the standings?
It's kind of tough because it feels like the easy answer, but so many of these are the teams that are dealing with injuries right now.
Hmm.
And the two in particular is New York, obviously with Brianna Stewart, hopefully coming back, and they're kind of in that zone for trying to be in that two spot, but also Indiana and Caitlin Clark because it feels like it's been a very long time since we've seen her on the court, and it's she went out with that re-injury or that secondary muscle injury right before the All-Star game, which was honestly devastating because
Yeah.
she just wanted so much to represent for her city, and it's been this prolonged thing, and those muscle injuries are slow to heal and they're easy to re-aggravate.
Hmm.
Um, but Indiana has been playing some just like really hard-nosed basketball, really gritty efforts. Other players, Aaliyah Boston's having a great season. Kelsey Mitchell's going to be in the All W convo. Natasha Howard has really found her own too.
Hmm.
But then they brought in Ari McDonald, who was great and is now out with a season-long injury. Same thing, Sydney Colson came in with them this season, and now Sid went down the same day as Ari. So they had changed their identity a bit without Caitlin, and it's a different team. And that's not to say I don't think that is to say they're a better team without her because she is just this unique talent. But they changed their identity, and
Hmm.
they're going to need some time once Caitlin is reintegrated into that lineup to find the pace that they want to play with and to reshuffle the touches. And I still think that they're a really dynamic team, but they're running out of time to get her back there and get her up to speed and to build her up to be able to take on the load that they're going to need for her from her to be their best version of what this 2025 Fever team can be. So I would say the Liberty, which I know we'll talk about more, but also just this Fever team.
Hmm. Yeah,
What
I
about
agree.
you?
I would say, outside of them, I do agree with you, but I mean, we talked about Vegas of how they've kind of, I don't want to say turned things around, but they've picked up
Mhm.
steam.
Yeah.
But they look very very tough right now. And then
Hmm.
the other team kind of on the other side of things is Seattle.
Yeah.
That's been a team that has kind of surprised me in not a great way, as far as what their struggles have been recently. But the if I mean they're still in a playoff spot, the Storm are,
Hmm.
and they could end up turning things around here over the last couple weeks of the season. But that kind of caught me off guard because they were near the top five or top for sure top six or whatever in the W most of the season, and then this rough patch. They're what 2-10 or 2-8 in their last 10 games. Like that's not a good time to have to go through struggles and to kind of hit some road bumps. You hope those happen in the beginning of the season, then you turn things around, kind of like what Las Vegas is doing right now. But
Hmm.
yeah, those two teams have kind of surprised me to some extent. But it's as we always see, it never fails every season. You get that basically 4 or 5 seed to 8 and 9, like all those teams in between there. It's either
It'll
a
be clustered.
game, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a game difference, and they fight till the last game of the regular season, which is it makes it fun, and that's how it should be. But
Yeah, and they're also just like there's obviously tons of history and examples pointing to this, but like when you do get those players back into the lineup, you are often better than you were before they went down because
hmm,
of everybody stepping into larger roles
yeah,
and being more comfortable in what they're being asked to do. And I think we're seeing that right now with Atlanta
hmm,
when they lost Ryan for a stretch. And then they came back and they are just firing on all cylinders right now. And they're just really hot and looking really comfortable. And now just have more options
hmm,
right now for dynamic scorers, for perimeter defense. And I know Jordan Canada's down, but she'll be back. They said, I think they thought they said she'd be reevaluated within 2 weeks or back within a couple of weeks, but it didn't sound like it was something that was going to keep her out the rest of the season. So again, another team that we just want healthy by the time the playoffs roll around.
hmm, yeah. Now that or we kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, but the two teams everybody thought were, and kind of still do think are going to be there in the end, Minnesota and New York. We've seen kind of I don't want to say it's disappointing because the game's been great, but it's been unfortunate, let's just say that, to see these two teams battle without the two big stars, that being Brianna
Mhm.
Stewart for New York and Napheesa Collier for Minnesota. Fee was in the first game against Minnesota and New York, and then went down after that. But it's still been a good 3 games. It's been, as we've seen the last 10 matchups, even going back to the playoffs, of these two teams just battling it out until the end. It's been back and forth in every single game. What have you thought on on both teams, but B, the matchups between both teams as well?
Yeah. Well, first thing is the scheduling thing. I hope this is a lesson learned
Hmm.
from the WNBA going forward, because if you had just spaced out these 4 games, one in May, June, July, August,
Right.
then you would have guaranteed having a healthy matchup at some
Hmm.
point. And I think that like for the top two teams in the league, that in terms of expectations and in terms of the finals rematch, you should always be trying to generate as much excitement as possible. And
Right.
these, even if both teams were healthy right now, the back-to-back series doesn't do that as much as the one-offs do. So
Yeah.
I hope that the league is understanding why this is somewhat of a letdown. But in terms of the matchups themselves, I have to say that in watching, it was hard to know where these teams stood
Hmm.
until we get to see them against one another. And I was very impressed by Minnesota throughout the year, but I was always just a little hesitant to say that they had jumped New York, not just in the standings, but in terms of who should be the favorite right now until we
Hmm.
were able to see them head to head.
Right.
And health withstanding, notwithstanding, because like we know that there's only so much that can be done from that aspect. But in terms of early in the year, I didn't think that the cohesion was on the same level as it was last season, but
Hmm.
I think it's grown to that point in terms of the defensive rotations and the chemistry and the communication. Early in the season, it felt like the offense had taken a leap, but the defense had maybe taken a step back.
Hmm.
But now I think that defensively, they're right where they were last season. And offensively, they're getting some of that benefit of learning how to play without fee and having other players step up. And it's been incredibly impressive.
Hmm.
New York, on the other hand, has struggled when players have left the lineup. And that that goes to show that, yes, having three top 10 players currently in the W is important when you
Hmm.
have John Claude Jones and Brianna Stewart and Sabrina Ionescu, that just two of the three of them in the lineup doesn't mean that you can just get by and dominate the league. So there's a lot to be learned from the Liberty side as well, and how difficult it is to integrate new players midway through. Stephanie Talbot came in, but then also obviously Emma Mieseman and
Hmm.
some of the struggles that they've had even despite bringing Emma back, and some of the things that the Lynx were able to exploit, especially in the pick and roll against this double big lineup, were really interesting to see because it's it's good for I think New York to know what those struggles are before Brianna Stewart gets back because some of that is going to be hidden when you have her on the weak side,
Hmm.
able to kind of help with some of those struggles. Um, but it's been an interesting. I kind of have enjoyed the chaos of this season. It's easier from a coverage perspective when the team is going out there and just winning every day. And we saw
Hmm.
that when the Liberty started 9-0.
Right.
Um, but and it's obviously it's a lot more fun to go to a press conference when people are not upset to see you there. Um, but in terms of just the storylines and the W, it's been just fascinating to watch this team go through so much adversity in a way that they still have that interior confidence that they know most of this group was here last year and that they were able to do this together. So it's good to see that it's not at all like a splintered locker room. It's the faith is still there and the belief is still there
Hmm.
in each other, in the coaches, in the system. Um, but despite that, dealing with a lot of injury adversity.
Yeah, I do think, kind of going back to your point earlier, you were talking about injuries. I think the thing that helps these two teams is you're getting all of this experience without your best player.
Hmm.
And obviously, when you get your best player back, that will help your team. It helps everything, helps every single player on the roster, or a player on the floor, or who is on the floor at that time. But it's good to have it happen right now because, if these two teams had both players healthy, all season long, then maybe first round of the playoffs they go down. That's worst case scenario. I mean, it's now if somebody gets hurt, they've been through this. Each
Hmm.
player knows they need to step up and how they need to step up. So it's a good learning opportunity, I think, for a lot of them, coaches and players. And the thing that is intriguing to me is it seems like every move New York has made, every new move that Minnesota has made is with the other team in mind.
Hmm.
There's a lot of times, it reminds me a lot of when, the Sparks and Lynx had their kind of battles back, a decade ago, or it's hard to believe it's been that long, but almost a decade ago, that it seems like every move was a chess move to beat the other team. And it seems very similar to New York and Minnesota this time around. I mean, New York kind of obviously with Emma Meesman, you get a little bit bigger, which is kind of a downfall to the Lynx because they don't have a lot of size. And then Minnesota kind of goes the other direction and kind of beefs up the guard group and or kind of the wing and the defensive side. So it's fun to watch them kind of go back and forth because they know it too. That these are the two best teams in the W, and it's probably it is likely that they'll maybe be there in the end again. But yeah, it's been. I don't feel like a lot of people are going to jump to conclusions too with these 3 games now, soon to be 4 games between these two teams, and say, wow, Minnesota's won 3 out of the 4 games, or they've won all 4 games, or whatever it ends up being. And they're going to say, oh, Minnesota's a better team. Okay, maybe, but that's not, you got to look behind, peel the curtain back a little bit and realize that the top 2 players are gone. A lot of new pieces are kind of moving in and out of the lineup. So there's a lot that can change even from now until the start of the postseason.
Yeah, yeah. I also think that like in terms of just the transactions, there's the just the counterpunch of everything. And this went back to New York and Vegas a couple of years too,
Yep.
where New York loses that finals in 2023 and they said we need to get bigger.
Hmm.
And that was the counter to the guard heavy team. And now Minnesota loses to New York and they're like, okay, we got to bring back Jess Shepard and we
Hmm.
have to bring back some more physicality on the perimeter and add some of that. And it's just the counter. And obviously, New York bringing in Natasha Cloud also before the season looked to shore up some of that strength and physicality and the perimeter that they saw. They had a lot of struggles with Minnesota because that finals was the most coin flip of a finals that we've seen
Hmm.
in league history.
Oh yeah.
So with both teams making huge comebacks and both teams blowing late leads, and obviously there's been enough discourse about whistles for a lifetime, and that's not going to stop that. That's not going to stop tomorrow. That's not going to stop last Saturday, and it's never going to stop.
Yeah.
But I think that like
Let's just say that Lynx, well, this is not a knock on Lynx fans because whatever, but Lynx fans still talk about the 2016 WNBA Finals when Neko Gumake hit that last
yeah,
second shot against the Lynx at Target Center in Game 5. So this will not go away for probably the next 10 years.
I
So,
know that one
uh,
was also allegedly stolen.
yes,
So,
yes,
so yeah. I mean, it's this is just sports fandom, and that's
it
nothing.
is.
Nothing is unique to the Lynx fans, and they should feel a type of way because they should be passionate and they should care so much. And
Right.
same could be said for every fan base, but that's just me saving my DMs mostly. I do think though that there is a lot to be learned from these matchups in the regular season.
Hmm.
And some of my biggest takeaways really are just first of all, it's great to see Courtney kind of get her confidence back a little bit in this series because she struggled game 5 last year and then struggled a lot in the first matchup between these two teams as well, at least shooting the ball.
Hmm.
So to see her come out in that third matchup and have 26 points, a season high, and really punish the Liberty on going under her and just getting to her spots so frequently is such a great thing for her individually because there were that in that first game she was taken out for Napheesa and it might have happened for stretches in the second too, but down the stretch. And I know that Cheryl has the luxury of having a couple of pink-haired buckets that she can go to. Uh, but it's great just as a huge fan of everything that Courtney is about to see her step up in that role, especially in Fee's absence, but also K-Mac.
Yeah.
K-Mac took it incredibly personally at the end of last season.
Hmm.
Um, game 3 might have been the most upset I've ever seen her
Yeah.
because she shut down Sabrina for a majority of that game, and then Sab gets free on that crossover and hits that iconic shot, right?
Hmm.
Probably now that they went on to win the title, the most important shot in Liberty franchise history. And then it gets forgotten that like that was a huge comeback because Stewie just took over that game in the third quarter.
Right.
But K-Mac was so good on Sab in that series and has been again in this regular season, while also just being one of the smoothest offensive players in the WNBA. So just to see the two of them really excelling is huge. But on the Liberty side, I think the biggest takeaways for me have been outside of some of the struggles. They still need to go, I think, more to the mismatches when they get Leonie Fibish able to post up down low because she's going to be out there against a guard. And there were some times where she had Courtney on the block and they were just not finding her.
Hmm.
And Leo can really be dominant in that way. And it's Minnesota's not a team that they should struggle rebounding against. The turnovers are going to be an issue, and there are a lot of unforced turnovers, but there's just so much of this system that allows, and so much of the Liberty's roster flexibility in terms of athleticism and size that allows them to be such a switchable team. But they get caught a lot in those mismatches, not boxing out or just
Hmm.
ball watching, and then people are flying in from the perimeter to chase down misses. So there's a lot of stuff that's like correctable, effort driven, but that stuff that they know that they really need to clean up. And some of that's going to be because you've got rotations and lineups out there that are not used to playing with each other. And that we see a lot in how Minnesota attacked New York with the pick and roll coverages specifically.
Hmm.
And New York just got lost sometimes or was going under a whole bunch and sometimes thought they were switching when the other player wasn't. And the weak side help isn't there. But again, a lot of that'll be cleaned up when the weak side help is Brianna Stewart, who they always love to keep off ball and roaming.
Hmm.
But we've seen times where they're like, okay, we'll have a couple of possessions where we'll put Brianna Stewart on Courtney Williams and get that 7 foot wingspan in her face and then see what her decisions are. So there's still a lot of chess to be played, I think, in this matchup. But there's just been great stuff on both sides, even without these teams at full strength.
Yeah, absolutely. When the teams are back at full strength, once we get into the postseason, do you agree that, or do you think that it'll end up being these two teams again in the finals in the finals rematch of last year?
If there is enough of an on-ramp, I think, to
Hmm.
get those reps, Minnesota, I've got, almost, I can almost write that in pen. I think
Hmm.
that they've been start to finish so dominant, and that's not to take away from any other team. I think for the Liberty, the big thing is for them not to fall to that 4-5 matchup
Yeah.
because it's so close right there. That's just such a tight cluster of teams right now. And it also, I think, benefits New York the longer into the playoffs before they see Minnesota because of just some of the size and the front court depth that New York has. I think they might be built for the 7 game series
Hmm.
in a way that a lot of these other teams aren't. So if I had to say, if the playoffs are starting today, I think Minnesota's a lock. I don't think New York is, but if they can get Brianna Stewart back in and up to speed, then I still have these two teams as being the two to face off at the end.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Stewie is one of the best players in the league. Getting her back and
Yeah, it
that
helps.
that goes, yeah, that helps just a little bit. It will, I mean, it helps. Like I said about, Fee, it helps every single player on the
Mhm.
court, and your best player makes other players even better. So
Yeah.
it's just, yeah, to your point, if they can get enough of a window in there you don't want her obviously back in 2 games. You got the playoffs that are starting. Like you want to get her back and just kind of get her up to speed a little bit if possible. I mean, that's obviously you're at the mercy of the rehab and the recovery. But um, yeah, it'll be definitely interesting to watch that and seeing how the regular season unfolds because it's
Yeah.
here already. I can't believe it's already here, but
And
it'll.
just to
Mhm.
that point, last week Brianna Stewart said that her goal was to be back before her birthday on August 27th, which
Okay.
would give her a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And at Liberty practice today, she was a full participant. And they were mostly doing walkthroughs. It wasn't any scrimmages because they are coming back from a 3-4, and this is the
Hmm.
first practice they've had in a while. But it was still good to see her on the court running with the second
Yeah.
team, but without restriction. And I asked Sandy Brondello after practice if that August before August 27th is a realistic timeline. And she said, yeah, that's what we're shooting for. So
Okay. Well, good.
that would give her a couple of weeks before the playoffs.
Yeah. No, that'd be huge. Definitely a. I mean, that gives you at that point probably what, like 7, 8 games probably that
Something like
she'd
that.
be able
Yeah.
to get back into the swing of things. And yeah, that'd be big. That's a big development to watch for. That'll make a
Hmm.
big difference and throw a wrench into things again. But Too bad we don't get another Lynx Liberty game
Yeah. So
after
they'll have to
August
meet in the
19th.
finals.
Yeah, I guess. Darn. Hopefully we'll see you back in Minneapolis here for or what in October sometime like last
Yeah,
year.
for 3 games this time.
Yeah,
Or
absolutely.
four.
Yeah,
Actually, or four.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. That would be true. That's true. But hopefully it doesn't, get too crazy like last year. It was a phenomenal series, don't get me wrong, but
But the whiplash.
let's make sure there's no controversy involved in anything. Let's just make it
That's my
a
one
clear.
thing though, is like I wish, regardless of who won, I wish that game 5 could have been flipped with any of the other
Yeah.
games outside of like game 2 in that series, which
Yep.
was a blowout. But like 1, 3, and 4 were all like all timers. And I
Yeah.
think five was just like the most grueling back and forth.
Yep.
Like both of these teams were exhausted and just
Hmm.
leaving it all out there. But like I hate that a call or a non-call is what people are remembering
Yeah.
from that phenomenal series and those two like perfectly evenly matched teams. And like it's just such a bummer because it could have been there could have been I'm saying this knowing that if 4 and 5 were flipped, there would have been free throw discourse in the other direction. So
Yeah.
like there's going to be some element of that, but like we had what 18-point leads blown in
Hmm.
games 1 and 3 with either team like winning, having a miraculous comeback, and like
Yeah.
that is how that series should be remembered. And
Yeah.
I'm just on a soapbox here, being like, stop nitpicking the bad stuff when there was just
It
so
was
much
a phenomenal
greatness.
series.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, let's make it another year of that, and then hopefully it'll lessen the pain of what, or I don't know, lessen
or
the
add to it.
controversy, or add to it. Yeah, or add to it. But no, it'll be a fun rest of regular season, fun postseason, and hopefully a deep postseason for both the Liberty and the Lynx. I think it'll be a great playoffs this year. But Myles, appreciate you joining me.
Of
Appreciate
course.
the insight as always. It's always a blast chatting with you, and we'll have to catch up with you here again soon. If the Liberty and Lynx are back in the finals, we'll definitely have to do this again once we get closer to the
We'll have to do
finals.
it live.
Yes, absolutely. Sounds great to
In
me.
person.
Yes, yes, definitely. We'll definitely do that. But
Thanks
all
so
right,
much, Mitchell.
yep. Thank you. Take care.
You too.
Thank you once again to Myles for joining the podcast. As I mentioned before the recording, Myles is awesome. Myles is he's such a great guy, and he does such a great job. He's so knowledgeable, and he's just a joy to talk to. But if you are looking for another person to follow on social medias, if you're not already, you need to be going and following Myles because he's so thorough. He does a great job of covering the Liberty as well as the rest of the WNBA. So go check him out. Read his work at winsidr.com, and you can find him just about anywhere. So Myles is great, and I appreciate it, Myles. I also want to give a shout out to my partners, Terry Horseman and Andrew Dukowitz. They're it's been awesome to have those two on the Hitting the Hardwood team. I never envisioned 3 years ago that this would expand into kind of a team. I thought this was just kind of me running the show and kind of having my podcast, and we'll see where things go. But it's been a pleasure to not only get to know Terry and Andrew because they're just phenomenal guys and phenomenal human beings, um, but to team up with them to provide this to you guys. As I mentioned earlier, you guys deserve this. So it's been a blast, and I can't thank those guys enough for being willing to join me and start on this endeavor of hitting the hardwood. And it's been a fun 3 years, and we look forward to continuing to provide this content, this coverage, these podcasts, and everything in between. I also want to give a huge shout out to our partners because they are one of the biggest reasons why we are able to do what we do here at Hitting the Hardwood. Their support goes such a long way, and everything that they do to help not only promote the game but promote us. It's just phenomenal. And like I said, we couldn't do it without them. If you or someone wants to partner with Hitting the Hardwood, you can do so by checking out our partners page on the website. You can send us a DM on social media. You can email us at hittingthehardwood@gmail.com. Any form of communication, reach out. Let's see what we can do. We have sponsorship packages and kind of levels that you can choose from, or we can get creative and kind of go outside of that. So just reach out to us and we'll figure things out and how we can partner together to help this game grow. But I want to our current partners, as I mentioned, I want to give them all a shout out. First and foremost, I want to give a shout out to Pentz Homes. Nate Pentz and the Pentz Homes team is awesome. They should be, if they're not, they should be your top choice, whether you're buying or selling. And because they're just here to support you, they're here to support your home ownership goals. And Nate is one of the biggest Lynx fans, one of the most passionate Lynx fans, and he is an absolute hoot to follow on social media. I haven't had too many chances to interact with him in person, but Nate's great. Nate's great. So go check the team out at Pentz Homes and support them. And on top of that, if you schedule an appointment with Pentz Homes, you get entered in to win a pair of upcoming or tickets to an upcoming Lynx game. All you have to do is you just have to mention that you heard this on any of the Hitting the Hardwood podcast or family of podcasts. That be this podcast, Hitting the Hardwood, the Lynx Happy Hour podcast with Terry Horseman, or the Missing Lynx podcast with Andrew Dukowitz, and you'll be entered in for a chance to win those tickets. So if that is enough to convince you, you need to go do that. That is a great deal, and you do not want to miss out on that. I also want to give a shout out to Fantasy Sports Evo. They've been a partner here of Hitting the Hardwood for a few years now. Fantasy Sports Evo is a new way to play daily fantasy sports, made for all sports fans. You don't bet on players like you do any other betting platform. You pick teams. You bet on teams, so you're picking which team's going to make the most three-pointers rather than which players are making the most three-pointers. So it's a very unique way of playing fantasy sports, but it's awesome. I've enjoyed it quite a bit, and I'm a regular user myself. If you go check out Fantasy Sports Evo and you sign up using the promo code LYNX, LYNX, you receive a 100% deposit match plus $10 in playable credits. So thank you, Fantasy Sports Evo, for your support of Hitting the Hardwood. Next up is Firehawk Construction and Remodeling. Firehawk Construction and Remodeling. They're a newer sponsor, a newer partner here of Hitting the Hardwood, but they've been phenomenal. They're located in Blaine. They're proud to serve the North Metro area as of now. And you need to go check them out and go reach out to them because Isaac and the team there are there to help you with anything building and remodeling that you might need for your home, your cabin, or anything. So please contact Firehawk Construction and Remodeling if you are considering that work on your home or your property or whatever else it is. And then the last two, Better Edge and Homage. Better Edge is a Minneapolis-based betting company. Also a sports betting company. They are proud supporters of the Lynx, of the WNBA. They have been since day one. And if this doesn't convince you to go check out Better Edge, I don't know what will. First of all, Better Edge is BETTOR edge.com. If you go to betteredge.com/Lynx and use the promo code LYNX, LYNX, you receive a free $20 when using that promo code. So go check out our good friends at Better Edge. And then Homage. Homage, we have partnered with, or we started partnering with them really since the inception of Hitting the Hardwood. You'll see us regularly do giveaways and contests with Homage and Homage's gear. But they're a vintage clothing store. They offer a variety of clothing items, also, or notably WNBA and Minnesota Lynx items. So you can go to our partners page. There are two URLs in there, or hyperlinks, I should say, with where you can find Lynx gear and WNBA gear. If you click on any of those and you buy something through the site, a portion of that comes back to support Hitting the Hardwood. So it's doesn't cost you anything more, but you can go check them out and support them, and then in return support Hitting the Hardwood. But with that said, I have rambled long enough about everything that is behind the scenes and business related. I want to end things up by first and foremost saying thank you for listening. Thank you for following along. Thank you for being there and supporting us in doing something that we truly do enjoy. It's been, like I said earlier, it's been more than I ever could have hoped for. And I just really enjoy doing this. I enjoy providing this content because I think you guys deserve it. And that's something I want to continue to do for years to come. And it's been an absolute blast. It's been an absolute blast to cover the best team in the WNBA in the Minnesota Lynx. and it's been just a joy. The last 10 years have been awesome. So I look forward to continuing it, and I look forward to continuing to enjoy the rest of this regular season because it's winding down here, and we gotta enjoy the games while they're here. But because before we know it, the postseason will be middle of the postseason, or we'll be nearing the end of the postseason. And then we'll be missing WNBA basketball. So enjoy the games while they're happening right now. Enjoy these last few weeks of the regular season. And let's get ready for some playoff basketball, shall we? I'm excited for what we could see this postseason, notably from the Lynx. See how deep they are able to run, if they can go into the finals again this year and kind of get over the hump that they weren't last year. So. We'll see what happens. We'll enjoy the rest of these games. I will be continuing to have podcasts here if all goes well. I'm really looking forward to announcing the next guest I will have on the podcast. I think you guys will absolutely love that. But I'm working out some details there, and I'll share that here in the coming days and weeks. So with that said, thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Please like, share, subscribe, rate, everything in between. The Hitting the Hardwood podcast and all of our other podcasts as part of the Hitting the Hardwood network. And let's keep this thing rolling. So thank you for listening. We'll talk to you guys next time.